All right, next let's work on the dog list component, or the home page, where we'll see every dog has a little circular photo or something and a link we can click on to see more about that dog. So we'll begin. I guess I'll delete this navbar. It's quite large and taking up too much of my app.js. Okay, so make sure I close that div. And I'm going to begin by just importing in, well, import is the wrong term, copying and pasting the data I gave you, the starter data, and I'll make it part of default props for the app, call it dogs. Great. Next, let's set up our router. So index.js, we need to make sure that our app is wrapped with a browser router. So we need to import that. Import browser router from React router DOM. Then over here, we need to wrap it. So browser router, and then put our app inside. And don't copy the comma like I did. Okay. Next, we'll go back to our app.js and we'll define, well, first we'll import a switch and route components from React router DOM once again. And then down here, instead of returning a div, let's return a single route for now. And our route will be /dogs. It's up to you. I'll call it that, and that's the path. And then render for now, let's just render an H1 or something like this, dog list. Oh, and I need to make sure I'm importing my images, which I'm using here. So Whiskey, Hazel, and Tubby. I'll get rid of Muffin Lord for now. So each one of these is using an image variable, but right now React and JavaScript doesn't know what to do with this. It's just a name that doesn't refer to anything. So I'm going to import those up here, and I'll delete the logo. We're not using that. And if we head back now, we should be seeing something if we go to /dogs. Now we don't have anything showing up otherwise because we're not rendering anything. There's no return, or there's no route that matches. Okay, so let's make our dog list component instead of rendering an H1. So in my source, I'll make a new file and I'll call it doglist.js. Perfect. Create my React component. Export default dog list. I don't know why I prefer to do it at the bottom. There's nothing wrong with doing it right here in line. And let's add our H1 that says dog list. And then basically what we're going to do is loop over all of the dogs, and for each dog make some sort of content. But right now we don't have access to those dogs. And rather than hard coding it in here, I'm going to pass it down from my app.js or from wherever the route is. So to do that, instead of rendering an H1, I'm going to import, and I like to do all my React components up top before things like images and CSS. So import dog list from /dog list. And then down here, instead of an H1, we'll do a dog list. And we don't need any inner content. So we'll just do a dog list that self-closes. And then we'll pass down dogs. And dogs is going to be this.props.dogs, which is coming from the app default props. This.props.dogs. And let's see if everything's connected okay. Let's go to /dogs. We'll make sure it's showing up in props instead of our React Dev Tools for our dog list. And we do have the dogs array instead of props. Okay, so now what's the content that we want to make for each dog? Well, I'm going to use the Bootstrap grid to make 3 dogs across the page. So evenly spaced, responsive, and then as we resize the page, let's say, imagine 3 dogs here. As we get to a smaller screen size, then I want them to go into a single column. So to do that, we're going to use the Bootstrap grid system. So we'll keep my H1 for now. I'm going to give it a class name of, I think, I'll do display1 and just see if that works. And I'll give it text center. Those are Bootstrap classes. There we go, centered in the middle. And display1 gives it a larger font size. I think it's 4 EMs or REMs, I can't remember. I'm going to give this entire div a class name, like I usually do, call it DogList. And then inside of here, I'm going to start on the grid system. So when you're using the Bootstrap grid system, you're supposed to put all of your content that is inside of the grid inside of a container. Okay, and that just adds some space. And then inside of that, we're going to define our first row, where we just write class name equals row. And then inside of that, whatever we put in here will assign a certain number of columns to take up. There are 12 units of space. So if we imagine something going across here, 12 blocks, how many blocks do we want each item to take? And then also that can change as the screen size changes. So I'm going to do class name equals column dash 4. So there are 12 units. That means that we would have 3 items. And just to show you, if I put some content in here, let's do text center, and then just some gibberish for now. And then I duplicate this 2 more times so that we have a total of 12 columns, 4, 4, 4. There we go. This is all of our space, 4, 4, and 4. Good enough for now, but instead of column 4 text center, I'm going to undo and just go back to 1. We don't want to hard code 3 of those. We want to use this.props.dogs. So this.props.dogs, and I'm going to map over it. And then we'll go with D for each dog. And then what we want to make for each one is one of these columns here. And we will want to give it a key. And if we look at our data right now, we don't really have a logical key. I'm just going to go with name. That's the most unique thing, I guess. So key will be d.name. And then we're going to want to put an image in here. And the image source is just source, d.source. So source equals d.src, and we need to give it an alt attribute. So let's do d.name, just the name of the dog. And then after that, I think I'll do an h3, and instead of that h3, we'll just put d.name. Let's see what we get. Okay. Not quite what we're looking for, but it will work for now. Our images are quite large and they are breaking through the spacing, although you can see our text is respecting those grids. So I'm going to come back and add a CSS file for DogList, so doglist.css. And the first thing I'll do is give each one of these a class name of dog in addition to all this other stuff. Or we could call it DogList dog or something. And I'm going to start by selecting the images that are inside of something with the class of dog, and I'm going to give them a width of 75%. And that should be 75% of their, oh, I haven't included this CSS file. So let's do that now. Import ./doglist.css. And there we go. They're now respecting 75% of that column space that they have. Right now, they always take up 4 items out of 12. So that's quite small there. What I'm going to do is now make it responsive and say, I only want them to take up 4 units once we are at the large size or medium. Let's play around with it. So when we use this syntax in Bootstrap, it assumes they should take up all 12. So basically go to a single column layout, 12, 12, 12, until you hit the large size. So you'll see where that is. So we're currently at extra large and large. Then we hit right back here. There we go. They go to a single column layout. So this is extra small, small, medium, somewhere around here, and then this is large. So if we change that to be column large or column medium 4, for example, you'll see they take up 4 units, all sizes above medium. So small and extra small, they default to 1. And you can play with those numbers. You could have it go, to a 2 column layout first. So like this, column large 4. So this says each one of them should take up 50% of the screen or of the container at the medium size and above. And then once we hit the large size, they should take up 4 out of 12 units. So it looks like this. There we go. So we have 2 or 6 and 6, and then we have 4, 4, 4. Anyway, this isn't a Bootstrap course. I do have one of those if you're interested. So I'm going to keep it at column large 4. And I'll end this video here for now. We have a lot of styling left to do, but I'll save that for later. Next, let's work on getting the individual dog page. Let's call it dog detail. That'll be the next video, so we can click here and end up on the correct dog.